everybody, it's Jean here, Jean's Block Party 2019. We are on block number 18. I have shown you block number 17, the last video. This week we are concentrating on squares within a square, which is this center unit here. The white and the four contrasting colors of this block is making up sort of a ribbon or a cross shape on this block. I have used 3 different fabrics, obviously contrasting, high contrast. Now, my block, as I was working it, is more subtle. My 2 different reds are sort of the same shade but different patterns, so it's a bit more subtle. If you're using scraps or if you're using colors, you could make it really pop. You could have 3 different colors or 3 different contrasts to make this block. Mine's a bit more subtle. I was using my red and white this week, block 17 and block number 18. We're perfecting our, again, you have to make sure that your back looks as good as your front. My back doesn't look as good as, my back on my front doesn't look good. It's so funny. So, sorry. The seams we're pressing open this week. Sometimes we press to the dark. Sometimes the fabric tells you it wants to go to the light. And somebody did say, I commented on, oh, I let my fabric talk, but a couple people were like, yeah, it does. Fabric talks to you. So, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So this week we're pressing these seams open and matching these points here. Again, the skill, if we're learning anything, is the configuration of your blocks. Sometimes in quilting, as you beginners or confident beginners now are learning, it's not so much the sewing, it's the organizing. It's the keeping track. Shout out to Linda Gunter. Thank you so much, Linda. Quite a few people have thanked you also for your design, your portable design board idea suggestion. Awesome. I realize that a design, so many of you have a design wall, which is either a piece of felt or flannel or batting tacked up to arrange our quilt as we progress our quilt. Well, Linda had suggested just a portable one, which I love, which is a piece of foam or a piece of card covered with batting. Awesome idea that you can take your blocks over to your machine. And for this block in particular, to keep your 3 different fabrics in the proper order. Last week, I have to apologize. Block number 16, it was a little bit hard. A couple people were like, well, I had to do that like 5 times because it was a little bit confusing. And I addressed it in the last video about my cockamamie way that I was cutting my 8 half-square triangles. I just had to laugh at myself. I'm like, you really made a big cake job of that. But so many people were so very gracious, like, well, you could have done it this way. As I was saying, they're probably thinking, she's an idiot. Like, why is she doing it that way? I crack myself up. Okay. Yes, we are going to be doing 42 blocks. That was another thing. I was concerned that we're doing 18. I got a pile of blocks, right? 42. The general consensus was people have voted that keep doing the 42 blocks. Now, again, as a beginner, last week, if you saw, I put my 16 blocks together. It made a lovely little quilt. If I just sewed four blocks across and 4 rows down, got a lovely little quilt. You can do that, by all means. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I don't want you to be daunted. If you see your 16 blocks or your 20 blocks, 4 blocks across, 5 rows down, you want to put them together to make a lovely little lap quilt for somebody. Perhaps somebody's in a wheelchair. That would be a lovely size. Just sew the blocks together. But I think as a skill building task, if I'm imparting any kind of skill each week, something minuscule, you want to do the 42. The quilt will end up a decent size. Becca, I should have written it down. I wrote down that Becca, the quilt, just put the blocks together, is 54 by 63. Thank you, Becca. But I am determined, and I have determined, that I will do a 2-inch sashing and just a 2-inch small border around, a sashing in between the blocks. So the quilt will end up a decent size. I forget what it is, but it's a decent size that, again, confident beginners can quilt in their domestic machine with a little bit of, a little bit of muscle, but you can do that. But that's at the end of the day. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be trying to teach you how to do a interfaced applique. What we're going to be needing is just a few inches of the lightest weight interfacing. 2018 block party, we did a raw edge heart applique. This time I would like to show you how to do an interfaced applique, which has no raw edge seams, and then it can be appliqued either by hand, good luck with that, or by machine. And you know me, I love my blanket stitch. So that's for a couple weeks time. You're going to be making your own heart, and then we're just going to do some snowball corners to add a bit of interest. But that's in a few weeks, and I'll let you know what we need. I just wanted to say that I got a lovely comment from Eve. Thank you so much, Eve. She sent me an email, actually, that I had started my Jeans Block Party 2018 because my friend Jen, who you know now, had come to me and said, I want to make a quilt. I'm like, you want to make a quilt? You have like 9 quilts of mine, right? And Jen's like, I want to make a quilt. So that's why we started Jeans Block Party 2018, to teach my Jen how to quilt. Well, Jen is taken off. Jen is a confident beginner, almost an intermediate quilter. She's taken off. She's made quilts that are coming out of her wazoo. She's taken off. She's free motion quilting. She's piecing. So Eve had said, it was very kind of you, Eve, that I had done that for Jen, but this block party, I'm doing it for you guys, to teach you. And the greatest satisfaction I'm getting is seeing the blocks that are being done by beginners. Now, I know some of you, maybe a lot of you, aren't beginners and you're just following along. But for those of you who are true beginners, which you're telling me, and you're producing what you are, it warms the cockles of my heart to know that I have been able to show and to teach something. I was reading another comment. Joyanne says, sometimes I fly by the seat of my pants, and I do, and I wing it so often. Fly, wing, isn't that interesting? So I'm not your typical quilting instructor, but we're getting there. What do I always say? We're getting there in the end. So block number 18, that's block number 18, and block number 17, my bright whites and reds this week. Next week I'll be doing my maroons. What I did is I don't know why. Why did I do this? Well, maybe I did it for whatever reason, but I was getting confused. I had to go back to my videos, like, oh, again, I labeled these block number 1, block number 2. We've come a long way, right, from a 4 patch, block number 3. I've just done that for whatever reason. But when we go to put the quilt together, it's not block 1, 2, 3. I've addressed this before. It's however you wish to do it, and that's the exciting part of it. All of our quilts are going to look completely different, even the red and whites. And about 6 or 7 or 8 people have been doing red and white, just like me. And somebody, I think 2 people have done the exact colorways, the line of fabric. It's interesting, but the blocks look different. It's awesome, absolutely awesome. I love my red and white. I'm working on some other things in my sewing room, but that's for another video. So anyway, that's good. We're going to make a decent sized quilt. Thank you, Becca, for doing the math for me. These are our blocks this week, block 17 and block number 18. So, and again, I apologize for 16. Quite a few of you, that was a little bit hard, but this is an easy block. So have at it, and I will see you next week, folks, for Jeans Block Party 2019. See ya. Bye. So here we have block number 18, our cutting instructions for block number 18. We need 3 fairly contrasting fabrics for this square. One very light one for the center square. Again, we're doing a square and a square. We did one for block 17 with 2 square and a squares, but this one we just have 1 square and a square and 2 contrasting, but I didn't make them incredibly contrasting. I have a graphic red and a dot red, but you can see the difference between them to make this final square, the final block. So for fabric A, what I've chosen for my light ones on the outside, I have chosen this fabric and I've cut 1 5-inch square. Okay, and then I've cut 4 2 3/4 inch squares out of my lightest fabric, fabric A. For my fabric B, I have cut 6 2 3/4 inch squares. Very simple block this week. And for fabric C, I have cut 6 2 3/4 inch squares. Our cutting instructions are very straightforward. Now, what I have done on 2, the thing that you're going to be the most careful about with this block this week is our orientation of our squares. We're going to have to be careful. On 2 of fabric B, I have drawn a diagonal line, corner to corner. Remember that it's your pen which is on the diagonal. Your ruler is just slightly to the side of the diagonal. It's your pen, your marking that's on your diagonal. I have marked 2 of fabric B and 2 of fabric C. Now, excuse me, I'm going to get my little handy dandy design board here. I'm going to put my square and a square block together. Okay, being very careful. I'm taking my 5-inch square, okay, and with fabric B, with my fabric B, I'm going to take this is how it's going to end up. It's going to be, remember we do diagonal to diagonal, okay? But we're going to be doing it this diagonal and that diagonal, okay? Center of the square to center of the block there, okay? With fabric B. And then what are we going to be doing? We're going to be making sure that that's our block. We're having the white square within the square. But this week, as opposed to last week, when our blocks were, when these were all the same, and we just went around like that, what we're going to be doing this week is I'm going to have you sew 2 of fabric B, after you do the corners in the square, 2 of fabric B from center to center, from center to center. You're going to be making sure they turn, trim, and then you're going to be attaching fabric C. After these are trimmed and finger pressed back, then you're going to be attaching fabric C on the other corners. Okay, we got that? On the other. So we're making a block, a square with 2 contrasting corners. I'll take you over to my machine and I'll show you. So just like last week, we're making a square within a square. But this week we have 2 contrasting fabrics on the corners. Okay? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sewing one of my blocks, one of my 2 3/4 squares, again, slightly on the inside of this marked line, just one thread, and it's going from corner to corner. Remember, you don't want to mix up and put your diagonals that way. You want put your diagonals from the corner, from the center of the block to the center of the block. Scratch that nicely together and just stitch slightly on the inside. Whoops. Oops, my thread's gotten caught. Oh, my word. Let me just pull that out. Should redo this, but I won't. How many times has this happened to you guys? There you go. Just scratch that on, and I'm just stitching right on the outside. And what is this doing? This is just making sure that our fabric turns. Remember, this is just making sure that our fabric will turn. So we make sure of our corner, to make it a lovely square, and then we can trim that off, 1/4 of an inch. And then on the other side, now if you remember last block, block 17, we just continued around the block, but because we have 2 different blocks, I'm doing corners this week. So again, I just want my needle right on the inside of that square, right on the next to the line, 1 hair, and then right off. Check it, and there you have a lovely corner and trim. Must check, because sometimes they can get skewed. Now very carefully finger press this, being careful like we did last week on the diagonal, finger press that, and then with your other darker but the same contrast, you're going to do this exact same thing on each corner, on each diagonal. Remember, you want to go from the center of your block to the center of your block. Secure it, and then that, what we're trying to achieve, remember, is this 1/4 inch seam. You want to put your presser foot down, and then you're going to stitch just a hair inside, pulling this one along. You finger pressed it. There you go. And I can feel that I have created my 1/4 inch seam. Press it up. Make sure you don't skew it because it's on the bias. There's our corner and trim. So it's exactly like block 17, the square within a square, but with 2 different fabrics. That's what makes this block a little bit more interesting this week. So I'm going to do my final corner, center to center. Start up there. And just inside. Oh, it's pulling along. That's okay. And right off. Check it, and there we have a perfect square within a square and trim. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go set this seam here. I'm going to just sort of nose the iron into there, set those seams, and then roll them up, and the fabric wants to go that way. So I'm just going to make sure I don't have any red fibers in my white because that would shadow through. But I'm just going to roll that up that way, and I'll meet you back. Here is my center square within a square with my B fabric on this side. Now I'm sort of counting my B fabric, even though it's very contrasting, as a little bit lighter than my C fabric. It's not really, but if you want to make this even a bit lighter, I have just a slight contrast with this block, but it just adds a little bit of interest. But with my B fabric here, I now want to set out my block visually, and on top of my B fabric corner, I'm going to be setting this block here. I'm going to be setting it over here, wherever my B fabric is, and there, okay? Now, this is how I'm keeping track. My C fabric, we're going to be constructing this in rows. My C fabric is going next to my C block. My C fabric on the center block. So you understand what I'm doing? Okay? And then my A fabric is going in the corners. So it is sort of making a cross, as you can see, an X, okay, with a little bit of interest in my contrasting fabrics, although not a tremendous amount, just a little bit. So we sort of will have sort of this, sort of like an L here, with, you know, cut off, an L there, an upside down L there and an upside down L there. That's sort of cut off because of our square and a square. But there is our block with the white, with a contrasting block here. When it's off of my design board, you'll really see the white pop out. And now we are just going to do exactly like we did. What we're going to be doing is we're going to address this. Don't want to get confused. We're going to be addressing this in rows, but first of all, so this is our first row, this is our second row, this is our third row, but first of all you have to construct your rows, okay? You see that? So working with your first row, keeping your design in order here, working with your first row, you're going to be putting your blocks together, your squares together. This one's going there, this one's going there, and then these units here will go up to that unit and finish that seam there. You're going to be doing the exact same thing. You have to construct, since this is constructed, you have to construct this row, this unit here, and then this unit here. And then when that's done, you're going to put this unit up to there, and that's when you're going to be matching this point here and this point here. You're going to finish this row, and then you're going to finish this row, and then you're going to be putting your rows together. But I'll be back and I'll show you that point then. I have sewn together my rows, and I just wanted to show you that when you sew together your rows, I have not yet put together my center row here. What have I done? I put together my side blocks, my side rows. I've ironed these seams open, okay? I have ironed these seams open because you're going to be matching these 4 seams, 1, 2, 3, 4 seams with this center square and square unit. Again, when you make your rows, do that, but make sure that your configuration is correct. You have your fabric B next to each other. And then you have your fabric C next to each other, and then your fabric A is on the outside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to construct my row 2, just like we did on block 17. I'm going to match this opened seam with my 1/4 inch allowance right there, sewing that 1/4 of an inch. And that way, that line is going to match up perfectly, and I will have not cut off my point. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to make sure my fabrics are together the same colorway, and I'm going to be doing this one the exact same way, matching this seam up with the point there and sewing 1/4 inch along there. And then I will have my center unit, and then I can come back and then I can put my rows together. But I will be back. I've taken my block off of my design board, so now you can really see the white contrast of the contrast of my blocks. I've sewn these 2 seams together, as you can see, being very careful that keeping my fabrics right next to each other here. And as you can see, my fabric square wanted to be pressed out, and then these are pressed open. And the exact way now I'm going to sew my block together into my 3 rows. So now what we're having to match is you're going to match these seams here. You're going to be matching 3 seams. This one with this seam here, that one with that seam, and then this open seam is going to be on that 1/4 there. There you go. Now, as it happens, the way I pressed my fabric, where's my pins here? Excuse me. The way I ironed my fabric is I have beautiful nested seams. So that seam is going that way. Oh, my battery switched off. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, this is where I am. I'm going to be sewing my seams together here on my block. And excuse me, I don't know where my battery switched off. I'm going to be nesting 3 seams together, or matching 3 seams. So you see this one is in the center of that point there, and then these two corner ones are nesting beautifully because I've ironed this up to the light and these up to the dark. So these nest beautifully, and the exact same thing, making sure my configuration is right. I'm going to be doing this seam now, so I'm going to come back and I'm going to match up these seams here. First I'm going to do my center seam, making sure that that's right in the middle, and then I'm going to be doing this seam here, and it nests just beautifully. And then I'm going to make sure that this seam over here nests beautifully. And then I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch on either side of the block, and then my block will be done. There is block number 18. Ta-da! A square within some funky cross-looking X's or plus signs. My block. Pretty. I didn't use a tremendous amount of high contrast. You could, to really make these sort of ribbons pop. But the important thing this week is keeping your head straight with your configuration of your fabric. This little handy dandy design board is invaluable. Thank you so very much for suggesting it. I have my fabrics here, not hard, one square within a square, and then this ribbon around it. So there is block number 2. Oh, I keep forgetting to do this. It's a little small. Oh geez, it's a tiny little bit small. It's a little, oh no, it's just slightly little, just a slightly, like a millionth of an inch small. Yeah, how about that? How about that? Yeah, just a little tiny sliver. Oh, well, it's fine. It's great. It's whatever. Yeah, it's super. You didn't see that. Now it's fine. It's great. Love it, love it, love it. So that's number 18. And where is block number 17? Here we go. Oh, have you noticed I'm doing this on my my thumbnails? I was getting all confused, so I thought, oh, I'd better go and get some order here. And there's my block 17. So we're doing square within squares with my bright red and whites, and they're real pretty blocks. I think they'll look really nice on my in my block party. So yeah, block 17, block 18, and we're just doing a few more units, and yeah, have at it. I love it very, very much, and I will see you next week with 2 more blocks. Look at that. Block 19 and 20. We are getting there, folks. Okay, see you. Bye.